Hey, Bloomington Normal, and welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I am your host, Kev, here to talk about some super serious content this week, as I have personally been attacked in terms of my First Amendment right. I was personally attacked in my First Amendment right. I started the show Speechless with a couple of buddies because we knew that college campuses are not a place in which our content is, or our type of ideology is openly and freely discussed. It is pushed down. We are forced to be speechless because of what our colleges are doing, what our institutions are doing. However, this time I was forced to be speechless outside of just the collegiate atmosphere. And we're going to get all to that. But everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Speechless, like I said. Feel free to text or call in at 309-451-9299. Again, that number is 309-451-9299. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. You can also feel free to go onto YouTube. You can check out my YouTube at Speechless Kev, where I can interact with you and you can interact with me. I'd love to know what you guys have to say there. Again, that is at Speechless Kev. You can go see me right there on YouTube. But let's get to it. So this last week, I had a lot that I did. You might, if you do follow me on YouTube, you might have seen that I was on a town hall that I live streamed on my YouTube. I live streamed that, and we're gonna get a little bit into more about that. But then I was also asked by our very good friend here, Kat Peterson, my very good friend. She hosts the Morning Buzz with Kat every morning, and Conservative Kat on Saturdays from 5 to 7 p.m. But she asked me kindly to go to a town forum for a lot of different candidates as we have our local elections coming up. She asked for me to go to this and just asked a few questions of a few different candidates. I went and I talked to a bunch of different candidates for a lot of different offices. And it was just until I got to one in which that there actually started to become a problem. So John Danenberger, let's talk about this guy, John Danenberger, a little bit. So John Danenberger is running for Bloomington City Council. So it's a city council position. Bloomington's a decent sized city in Illinois. And this is his first time running. He's been from what I understand, he's been in the community for decades, in some respect. I believe he grew up here. John Danenberger, the Hamburglar is what I'm going to call him. John Hamburglar. So I'm going to this, and Kat gives me a brief on this story about John. And if anybody ever knows me, if you've ever listened to any of my shows, you might have noticed last week I had Carl Sela in here. Carl Sela is running for Normal Town Council. And I have anytime any candidate that wants to come in here, I come in here and let them give their side of the story on anything that we talk about. I'm kind. I'm not in this to try to, I do want to expose corruption when it's genuinely there to be exposed. But I'm going to let people give their side of the story because I believe that people speak for themselves best. And so I give people the opportunity to speak for themselves. What is the problem is when a candidate doesn't even want to speak to me because of who I'm with or anything like that. But I want to get a little bit more into who John Danenberger is, because this guy, we need to understand all about him before I get into the full story of my interaction with this candidate. So John he is running for Bloomington City Council, like I said, and he's very good friends with WGLT, who's one of our competitors. They're also the local NPR. So we all know they're going to have a little bit of a liberal bias despite being publicly funded. That is just NPR for you. So he's very good friends with NPR. And in fact, he even did an interview with NPR. And one of the questions that he was asked is about who he is as a candidate. So I'm going to pull up this video right here so that we can make sure that everybody, even if you're on the YouTubes, you can go follow me at Speechless Kev, and you can see me on YouTube there. Here is this video.
Why are you running?
Why am I running? I am running for city council because the neighborhoods that make up Ward 4 and the residents who live there deserve leadership with a long-standing...
A little bit of technical difficulties. This is what happens when we work on live stream and everything. I know that you can see it on YouTube and everything, but this is just what happens when we're live streaming. We're trying out new technologies. Sometimes we have some technical difficulties. Here's this video.
Why am I running? I am running for city council because the neighborhoods that make up Ward 4 and the residents who live there deserve leadership with a long-standing track record of strong advocacy skills a vision coupled with the ability and energy to carry it out, and finally, someone they see leading from the front and already supporting the ward in many ways. Most of my professional career has been spent representing and advocating on behalf of others, and the roles I've served in this and other communities bear that out. As an attorney, I've represented the U.S. Army at trial. As a chair and member of various boards, I've represented early learning centers, sports programs, housing non-for-profits, and university initiatives. And as a commissioner on the Planning Commission, I've helped city staff review and provide recommendations to city council and leadership on projects that have led to growth and opportunity for our city. I'm running to ensure Ward 4 residents have the best advocate and strongest ally to represent them.
The best advocate and strongest ally. Here's the problem when we start talking about John Danenberger being an advocate and a strong ally. So here's what I was going to try to ask John about and let him tell his side of the story when I was at this candidate forum at Illinois State University this last week. So in an article written from Cities 92.9 by our very own Kevin Woodard, Danenberger lied, missed a hearing, disobeyed orders, deflected blame, and lacked candor and breached standards in the United States military. So according to a United States Army Court of Criminal Appeals case heard in 2017, Bloomington District 4 candidate John Wyatt Danenberger lied, missed a hearing, disobeyed orders, deflected blame, lacked candor, and breached standards while in the Army. In United States v. Patrick A. Battles, clerk of the court wrote on behalf of the military appellate judges Mulligan, Febo, and Wolf, all this stuff, that Danenberger, here's all the things that John did, according to this real court document. You can look it up. If you go to my YouTube, find my link tree, my sources for most of the stories that I'm talking about in this episode are in that link tree. You can go to my YouTube at Speechless Kev, find it there. But anyways, here's all the things according to this court document that John Danenberger did. He falsely told the trial counsel and his client that he would be unable to attend a military hearing because he had to attend a mandatory special victims counsel training in Washington, D.C. Okay, so let's lay this out here. So John was supposed to be at a hearing overseas. I believe it was in Germany when I was reading through the court document. So he's supposed to be over at a court hearing to represent, because he's an attorney, he's supposed to be representing a client over there. But instead, he told the court that he was going to be at a mandatory special victims counsel training in Washington, D.C. This is a military training that is mandatory and would have been a reason for him to miss the hearing. But then he also told the special victims counsel program manager that he could not attend the training because he would be at the hearing. So he told each that he was going to be at the other. Well, when he didn't show up to either the hearing or the training, it kind of threw some red flags off to the United States military. An investigation was conducted, and it was found that he missed the court hearing because he was in fact in Majorca, Spain, on leave with his family. He was ordered then to return to Germany, but did not, and then appeared at the hearing that he claimed he was going to miss via telephone. He tried to deflect blame by breaching his duties to his client by implying his client had actually been untruthful in her testimony. That's what he claimed. There was no proof that she was untruthful in her testimony. That's what he claimed, that he breached his duties and it was all the client's fault. So then the judges, when they had a hearing on this, they claimed that he displayed a lack of candor, meaning that he wasn't honest with people, and he breached professional standards. Now, these are some pretty serious findings against Danenberger, and the military discipline can result from these types of behaviors. Penalties range from a written reprimand to removal, according to Army Regulations 690 through 752. And here's all the things that he could be legally liable for: is a failure to follow directives, falsification, insubordination, lack of candor, and refusing to testify. Look, in 2017, this is back again. In 2017, Danenberger was already working in Bloomington for State Farm. So I'm in Bloomington, Illinois, if you're on the YouTube and wondering where I am. Bloomington, Illinois. He was working for State Farm in his current position as corporate counsel. He went to work for State Farm in October of 2015, immediately after leaving the Army, where he worked in Weissband, Germany, and the last position he held was as a claims attorney. the court case that resulted in Danenberg being documented as in the behavior that was described resulted from a case that arose in Wiesbaden, Germany after a 2012 crime. Danenberger represented the plaintiff in the case after starting his work with the army in Wiesbaden. So he's a respected attorney, or at least he was until he committed these obvious crimes, which again, it's not necessarily major crimes, but he lied to people and he's running for political office. And he also should be honest with the people that he's running for. We wrote this story, and ever since then, Danenberger was radio silent, pun intended, with Cities 92.9. So I go to this candidate forum in which he is appearing. It's an open house hosted by WGLT, our local NPR station. And I go as a member of the public, a host of a YouTube channel, and a radio host. Most importantly, I was a student reporter. I am a student at Illinois State University, and I am reporting on what's going on in our town. When John was on the stage, so there was two parts to this forum over at Illinois State University hosted by WGLT. There was two parts. There was a portion where candidates were able to go on the stage with some of their competitors, and they were asked questions. And then there was an open house portion, which would mean that we could go and just talk to different candidates individually. So I went into the stage area to watch John when he was when he was asked questions. And one of the questions that he was asked was, how could he, as a local candidate and a local potential city council member, ensure that there is trust in government? As you guys all know, there's not very much trust in government from the federal level down. People don't trust the government. And his entire answer that he gave when asked about how to ensure trust in government was transparency from public officials. And John, I agree. I agree, John, that we need transparency from our public officials. We need public officials that are going to be honest with the public about certain questions that people may have. And so after he was on his stage area, I went over and found his table and stood near his table to try to talk to him a little bit. I tried to talk to him about what he was about everything that I said in the article. Not only did I try to talk to him about that, I also wanted to get his opinion on such like what he was asked by WGLT in that video that I previously played. Why is he running? What's his purpose? What does he think he brings to the table more than anybody else? I want to let him give his side of the story. That was my goal. That's always my goal in these kinds of interviews. But alas, that's not exactly how it pans out. Instead, and I have a short video to show, I didn't get faces in it because I was trying not to necessarily have anybody know that I was filming them. But I had a union rep that stood in between me and John, and I had the WGLT manager come up to me and lie to my face. Playing that clip now. I feel like you're being pretty hostile right now. I just want to talk to him.
No, I'm staff.
Okay.
And this was the process.
Okay, I just want to ask him a few questions about his candidacy.
If you didn't RSVP and get media credentialed by our people.
He's running for a city council position. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to let the video keep playing too, but I want to start off with the facts. So this is the lady that is talking is the vice president of our local NPR station. And she tells me that I need media credentials for this event. Frankly, I hadn't looked it up. I'll start off with that. I looked up, or I didn't know that I didn't know if there was any kind of media credentials. I was going more as a student and an intern of a local radio station and a person who hosts a YouTube channel that talks about interesting things that are going on in our community, especially those of political types. And so she tells me that there was some kind of media credentials I needed to do, some type of SVP or RSVP. And I believed her in the moment, which I shouldn't have, because I looked it up later, couldn't find anything about any kind of RSVP or media credentials. In fact, all the advertising for this event was that this was an open house. And an open house indicates that this is going to be an open event, open to the public, open to media, open to anybody. And if I was truly causing a disruption, a true disruption, then I could understand what ensues following this. But I was not. Prior to this video that I'm playing, I was standing quietly waiting to talk to the candidate. Quietly. Just waiting. So let's keep listening. Realize that, right? You talked about transparency. You talked about transparency, sir. You talked about transparency, but you don't want to be transparent with anybody. Is that how it is, John?
I think she just asked you what the full process.
So transparency is not important.
You're not a student reporter. You're with City's 92 Police.
I am a student here, and I'm also reporting. So I'm a student reporter.
You're trying to talk to him as part of City 92.9, correct?
I want to talk to him as a part of my YouTube channel, Speechless at Kev, and I'm a student, and I'm reporting on what's going on locally.
Do you have your media credentials for the event? Because he's going to talk to
media credentials that you cannot obtain because it was not a thing.
Constituents and approved media.
I was trying to ask him a few questions.
And
then the police come. Okay. And the police come. The WGLT lady gets me escorted out by the police. The police. And I'm nothing against this officer. This officer, very nice guy, walked me out of the room, shook his hand, and he seemed like almost like it wasn't necessarily what he wanted to do, but he was following an order. And I know that's not a great excuse, but I support the police, and I don't think he necessarily knew the implications of what he was doing. The implications of what he was doing is a threat to our First Amendment right. It was a threat. I wasn't even allowed to talk to John Danenberger, the Hamburglar, John Danenberger, because they wouldn't let me even get near him to let him tell his side of the story, everybody. They would not let me talk to him so that he could tell his side of the story. We're going to break this down even a little bit more, but we are coming up against a break on Cities 92.9. You're listening to Speechless, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Okay, everybody, thank you for tuning in on YouTube. Make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, hitting that notification bell, everything like that. I definitely want to make sure that. Do I know the NPR lady's name? I know it's you, Connor. I really don't want to just display names on here besides the candidate. You can look up if you want to WGLT. I already am planning on reaching out to her and asking about these media credentials that are not anywhere to be found. WGLT, she is the, I believe, like the vice manager or something like that, vice general manager of it all. For everybody out there, if you're watching right now, thank you guys so much. Feel free, please follow me on Instagram at Kevin the Phares. Definitely appreciate the following. If you have any questions, you can text or call in at 309-451-9299. That's right there. Thank you very much. Done and done. Appreciate it, guys. And make sure you're sharing to your friends. That's the other big thing. Like, subscribe, comment, ring that notification bell, but also share this with your friends. The only way that we get these messages out there is by sharing it with your friends. But yeah, it was a crazy experience. I got to be honest. Like I said, I'm always trying to be respectful whenever I'm interviewing anybody, Democrat, Republican, conservative, socialist. I don't care. I try to be respectful. But to be escorted out by the police and this man not even make eye contact with me, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. You are obviously, I wanted to ask if he was guilty. I wanted to ask what this was about. I wanted to get his side of the story. And he gets me forcefully kicked out of this public open house event. That is a threat to our First Amendment. Like, bar none. This is a public event on public property at a school that I attend and pay tuition and taxes to. And I'm forcefully removed by the police when I was not causing a scene at all. Simply wanted to ask him a question quietly, and they wouldn't let me. So in response to this, Connor, I did not, but during one of our breaks today, I will look into it, and hopefully I might be able to get into it a little bit. It'll be a story. It'll be a on the fly story I can look up. But we are about to come back to the show here, and I'm going to wrap up this story and start talking about another one. Hey, Bloomington Normal, and welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I am your host, Kev, and I'm just stunned. I am, pun intended, speechless at what is going on in our local politics down here in Bloomington Normal. Look, I have interviewed almost every candidate for Normal Town Council. Normal. I have interviewed almost all of them. It's a very divisive race. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you can go check me out on YouTube at SpeechlessKev. Like, subscribe, everything like that. Ring your notification bell and share it with your friends. But if you've seen me, you've known I've talked to almost every Normal Town Council candidate, and I have been abundantly respectful of all of them, given each and every one of them their opportunity to tell their side of the story. And we have a very divisive race down here in Normal. It's one thing that people are noticed, not only in Normal, but in Bloomington. A question at this forum that I was asked, or that I was at last week, that was asked of the Bloomington City Council candidates is, how are they going to avoid being so divisive in comparison like Normal? A lot of people claim that Normal's city council, town council election is pretty divisive. And I wouldn't disagree with that. It would seem as though it's fairly divisive. But the thing is that there needs to be a little bit of confrontation when it seems like people are abusing their power or abusing their position or could potentially do so. And so that's why I went to ask John Danenberger, who's running for Bloomington City Council, about what all these lies that he has. This is public record. This is in a public court case that he lied to the United States military and to the court of which he was supposed to appear in as to where he was going to be, all for what is allegedly or would seem to be a family vacation. That's where he was actually. It would seem that way. I want to ask him, John, if you're listening right now, what was in Spain? That's what I wanted to ask you, man. What was in Spain? Tell your side of the story. But instead, John gets me forcefully removed from this open house. An open house, a public event. I didn't even get to ask him the question. I didn't even get to ask him this question about what was in Spain. Once again, if you're just tuning in on Cities 92.9, I'm your host, Kev of Speechless, and I was given a police escort out of a WGLT open house this last week for trying to get the side of the story of this candidate, John Danenberger, the Hamburglar. This man's like 6.5 feet tall, lengthy. Obviously could possibly steal hamburgers. No, I'm joking. But I do want to show this video one more time so I can give you a play-by-play of everything that took place for me to get forcefully removed from this event. Here's this video. Okay.
I feel like you're being pretty hostile right now. I just want to talk to him.
No, I'm staff.
Okay.
So this WGLT lady comes up to me.
I just want to ask him a few questions about his
and tries to tell me that I need media credentials, which if you look online, there's nowhere to find media credentials. And tries to get me
RSVP and get media credentialed by our people.
He's running for a city council.
She's lying to me.
You realize that, right?
And then
you talk about transparency. You talk about transparency, sir. You talk about transparency, but you don't want to be transparent with anybody. Is that how it is, John?
I think she just asked.
This is Ben right here now, a teachers union rep.
So transparency is not important.
Where did you come from, Ben? Why do you matter?
Are you with Cities 92.9?
I am
with Cities 92.9.
And I'm also reporting.
I'm a student reporter.
You're trying to talk to him as part of City 92.9, correct?
I want to talk to him as a part of my YouTube channel, Speechless at Kev. And
who cares what I'm here to talk about?
Right.
On what's going on locally.
Or who I'm there with as a part of.
He's going to talk to constituents and approve media.
Approved media. There was not such thing as approved media at this. Now a cop shows up and I get escorted out by the cop. Everybody, this is an attack on our First Amendment. We are not able to ask questions of those that are running to represent us. It is insanity and it is absurd that we have politicians that hide behind teachers union reps when they have genuine criminal activity that they should just explain. John, I wouldn't have had a full half hour of my show dedicated to you and your lies if all you had done was just take my question. So, John, I want to extend the invitation. At any point before April 4th, I want to invite you onto my show to talk about this incident, one, why you got me escorted out by the police, and two, what was in Spain. We'll be right back with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Everybody, that was a short segment there. But I got another one coming up, and we're going to break down this town hall that I was in against all these people. Raven, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Yeah, just exactly. Imagine what he feels about our Second Amendment. Thank God he's only running for Bloomington City Council, because Bloomington City Council obviously wouldn't, hopefully, not have that much to do with the Second Amendment. But he obviously does not believe in transparency at all. He's not a transparent politician. Everybody, while I'm here, if you do want to support the show, I want to invest in new equipment. I want to get better streaming software, and make it so I can do a little bit more with the show, be more interactive. I can stream more too if I get a little bit of money to be able to pay for a subscription to this streaming service. Then I would love to be able to do that. So feel free. There's my Cash App. There's my Venmo. Eventually, I'd like to monetize the YouTube channel. I'd really appreciate anything would help. And like I said, the investment will go directly back into my channel here, and be able to help out you guys. And so thank you very much. I'm going to find ways, possibly shout outs or something I could do for certain prices and stuff. This is my first week of trying to monetize stuff. But I really would appreciate it if there's any way you could help out. Okay, Connor, I will look up. Looks like I still have a few more minutes. Wish I could help. Love seeing kids like yourself. I really appreciate this, Raven. Again, even just watching, sharing, if you can't help monetarily, I totally understand. But if you could share the channel with everybody you know, put it on your social media, stuff like that. Word of mouth is always helpful. Anything like that is very appreciated. We have a cultural war we are fighting, and it's not easy. It's much easier, and I don't always agree with him. But there's a good guy, Connor, who runs the Progressive American. He's a lefty. He's a nice person, and gives people the benefit of the doubt. Go check his stuff out too if you want a differing opinion, something different. But I'll tell you, he probably has it a little bit easier. Being my age and being a lefty, being progressive, really easy. Everybody wants to be your friend. Everybody. But if you want to get out and actually say something that you believe that might be a little bit more controversial, like that men are men and women are women and you can't change that, well, you don't necessarily get treated with hugs and high fives for that one. So any kind of marketing help even like that would be super duper appreciated. Thank you so much. Up next, we're going to get into this town hall that I was a part of. That'll be really fun. Not all Democrats are bad or woke. No, not all Democrats are bad or woke. I 100% agree. No, 100%. Absolutely. And we're going to talk kind of about that a little bit. But we're doing some rebuttals for my next part here. All right, we're going to be back here in about 20 seconds, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. A little less conversation and a little more action. That's what we got here on Cities 92.9. We're talking. That's what we're doing. But we do want action, obviously, from our politicians. But it starts with a conversation. We got a conversation. We want action, and we're just going through it. But everybody, you're listening to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I am your host, Kev. Live not only on the radio, maybe on your app if you got the Cities 92.9 app. You can go do that, get that in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, check it out. But I could also be on the app YouTube. If you got YouTube on your phone, computer, wherever, you can go check me out at Speechless Kev, and I can see you. You can see me in the studio live. I can interact with you. You can interact with me, and you can comment. You can see a little bit of extra content during the breaks. I'm talking with the people. If you're commenting, I'm talking with you on the YouTube. Everybody, in the first half hour of the show, I broke down why I got escorted out by the police for trying to ask a city council candidate, Bloomington city council candidate, a question. Tried to ask John Danenberger about his whereabouts in 2017 when he lied to the United States military and he lied to the court that he was supposed to be appearing in as an attorney. John didn't want to answer. John doesn't believe in transparency. Or I shouldn't say definitively John doesn't believe in transparency. John will tell you he believes in transparency, but his actions show differently. And so, like I said in the last segment, John, if you're listening, John Danenberger, I want to invite you onto my show at any time. Please come here. I want you to come in and I want to talk about A, why you were scared to talk to me, a 22-year-old kid, student reporter, who wanted to just get your side of the story, understand where you're coming from. And then I also want to talk about what was in Spain, John. Because instead of being at the court that he was supposed to be representing a client, a victim of rape, instead of being there or at the in Washington, D.C., attending a military training, John was in Spain. And if it's a family vacation, John, we get it. But why'd you lie? Let's talk about it. John, anytime you want to come onto my show, especially before April 4th, before the election, I want to know your side of the story. Let's talk about it. Anyways, here is we're gonna move on a little bit. Everybody, if you're just tuning in, you can feel free to text or call into the show at 309-451-9299. I will be taking calls live. And we can talk about almost anything. I got a few different things that we are covering here, but you can call in. I'll bring you on. Just obviously no cursing, anything like that. Got to follow the FCC guidelines. But here's what we're going to talk about next. You're listening to Speechless, everybody, on Cities 92.9. And I'm your host, Kevin. This last week, not only was I given a police escort out of a public event, trying to talk to public officials, I was also a part of a town hall. So a town hall at Illinois State University. For anybody who doesn't know, I am the president of Turning Point USA, a nonpartisan conservative organization. So when I say nonpartisan, obviously we're not pushing any kind of party. We are pushing the ideology of conservatism. And so we're conservatives, and we were part of a town hall that included the Young Democratic Socialists of America. It included the College Democrats. It included the College Republicans and Turning Point USA. And there was a lot of different issues talked about. There was gun control. There was trans rights. There was healthcare. There's a lot of stuff. And so it was not a debate. It was a town hall, which means everybody just got asked a question and you answer it. And so I'm going to use this opportunity to take a few of the arguments that were presented at this town hall. If you missed it and you want to go watch it, it is on my YouTube. I know the audio wasn't amazing because I was streaming it off of my phone. But you can go to my YouTube at Speechless Kev, and you could go watch the full town hall that was this last week. And see if you can hear all the different things that were said. But I'm going to talk about what some of these different people had to say that were not a part of Turning Point USA, and just address some of the things that they said. So the first question was on gun control. And this, I have the response from the College Dems. I know the audio might not be perfect, but I'm going to do my best to make sure that everybody can hear what this representative from the College Dems had to say about gun control and her question regarding gun control. Here is that video.
Does your party believe an increase of gun laws will infringe upon the right to self-defense and deny people a sense of safety?
Absolutely not. We believe that gun control laws are really needed right now. When you look at the statistics, there have been 106 mass shootings in the past 68 days. That is more than one mass shooting a day. We have had multiple times where when we have had the opportunity to choose people or children over guns, and we have always chosen guns. What we need to do is we need to implement gun control laws. We have multiple different options. We can choose gun registration and background checks. In fact, there was just an executive order by President Biden for more background checks. What the gun registration does is what the car registration does. You have to learn how to drive. You have to learn everything else that is involved with it. You get a license and then you are allowed to drive your car. It is no different with gun registration. And the background checks, that allows us to know who the good guys with guns would be. Without any of these safety measures in place, we have no possible way of knowing.
Okay, so here's the thing is I want to start off with a few different things. First off, I don't necessarily think background checks are a bad thing. Background checks and the thing is right now we have background checks. We have pretty extensive background checks for anybody to get a firearm. I agree with that. But I want to get into this a little bit. So first off, she starts when it comes to, so the question she was asked is basically, does gun control, or are there gun control measures that would help with gun violence? She starts off talking about mass shootings. Mass shootings are insane. What I mean by that is they're a pervasive and a horrific issue. And we have rightly focused attention on trying to reduce them. But a majority of gun deaths, we look at it, and this is also incredibly sad. 54% of gun deaths in the United States are not homicides. They are suicides. Indeed, as there's a Giffords Law Center to prevent gun violence. They say the untold story of gun violence in America is suicide. It's awful. I'm a serious advocate for mental health. But all that this college Democrat focused on in her conversation was that the gun was the problem. Primarily, the guns need to be registered with the government. And to receive a gun, you should have to have a background check. Nowhere in there did she talk about mental health resources. And that's the most important thing. She also didn't even mention the fact that J.B. Pritzker is trying to take away, quote unquote, assault weapons. Doesn't really define what an assault weapon is. Must be all those assault pistols and handguns that are actually committing the majority of the crimes. But I digress. Now, the thing is, though, is that the majority of gun control laws don't actually protect people because the bigger issue is the issue of mental health. Because not only are those that are committing suicide suffering from mental health issues, it's also anybody who would feel the need to commit such a mass shooting. But mental health was never brought up in the argument. The other thing that I want to point out is that registration of guns, she compares to having a car. Oh, you need a license for a gun? You need a license for a car. It only makes sense. And I want to just say, I do my research, I do my due diligence. And so I read the Constitution cover to cover. And I looked for anywhere in there that it might say something about a right to bear an automobile, or right to bear a car, right to have a car, right to drive. Nothing like that. There was nothing in the Constitution about a right to drive. But I could find really close to the beginning, really close to the beginning of the Constitution, a right to bear arms, a right to own a firearm, the Second Amendment. We just talked about the First Amendment in the first half hour. We're talking about the Second Amendment now, everybody. We have a right to bear arms. We don't need you shouldn't. There are courts that have found it unconstitutional to have a license to own a firearm. Like the FOID that we have in Illinois. There are Illinois courts that have found the FOID to be unconstitutional. It's insane that somebody would try to make a comparison between driving a car and having a license to have a car, which is a privilege. That is a privilege. And I know even the conservatives don't always like hearing the word privilege, but I'm not talking about privilege based on race or anything like that. Being able to drive a car is a privilege. If you're found with a DUI like Paul Pelosi, you could have your license revoked. He won't because his wife is one of the most powerful people, or was one of the most powerful people in the world. But if you get a DUI, you can have your privilege of having that revoked. It is a lot harder, and it should be a lot harder, to take someone's guns away from them. The only time that you can have a gun taken away from you is that if you are found to either be a risk to yourself or someone else, or you have committed a violent felony before. And those are the main ways right now. There are different, obviously, state and local laws that challenge that. And those are things to have conversations about, potential red flag laws and things like that. I'm not usually a big supporter of most of it because a lot of it can be abused by our system. But it's something to talk about. But the biggest thing that we need to talk about is mental health. And so here's how I want to wrap up this first question that was asked about gun control. I have no doubt that gun control works. You can ask any of the experts. Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, the list goes on. That was what our Turning Point rep had to say when on the stage. And I just thought it was great. Those are the people, the socialists, fascists, and communists. They're the ones that believe in gun control because they know that a disarmed population is an easily controlled population. And that's mainly assuming that they can get every gun off the street. The left loves to tell you that banning guns will stop mass shootings. However, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, in 2016, of those that were arrested while possessing a firearm, 90% of these firearms were obtained illegally. 90% of them. Legal gun owners are not the problem. They're rarely the problem. And in fact, oftentimes they save others in times of crisis. We've seen so many different stories of people across the country who they're the good guy with a gun that stops a bad guy with a gun. And so that's why laws like J.B. Pritzker's assault weapons ban and most gun control laws, period, are actually an assault on our ability to protect ourselves. That's what people are coming after. They're coming after because the thing is that it's all about control. I'm not saying every Democrat too. Here's the thing. You're going to have some Democrats who are genuinely just empaths. They're empathetic people, and they see a short and simple train of logic that says guns are present in mass shootings. Guns are bad. Take guns away from people, stop mass shootings. There are going to be people that have that train of logic. But I'm going to tell you, the people that are really pushing this policy, the people at the top, it's not out of a place of empathy. It's out of a place of power and control. It is making sure that that they have a submissive society so that if they try to steal an election, push us into our homes due to a disease that they severely overhype, try to force you to wear a mask, anything like that, they don't have to worry about anybody coming after them. They don't have to worry that somebody might actually fight back. And a commenter on YouTube recently said that we might be coming to a point where we have to use our Second Amendment to exercise our First Amendment, or use our Second Amendment to protect the rest of our rights. I'm not saying that point's today. But as Ronald Reagan said, freedom is always just but a generation away from extinction. And so we need to keep an eye on it. We need to demand transparency from our public officials, and we need to demand that our rights that are sacred to our freedom are kept. Everybody, we have to take a quick break here on Speechless, but we have so much more to break down, so many other stories. Going to finish up some of this stuff in the first hour when it comes to the town hall, and then I'm going to get into some other issues, national and state issues in the second hour. Everybody stay tuned for more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Whew. I'm heated today, everybody. I had a great week. I had an interesting week. A lot of times I'll just be sitting inside doing homework and something all week, and I'll just have to find some news stories and stuff. But this time, this is the time that we can actually, that I had a lot to talk about because I participated in a lot this week. I had this town hall. I had John Danenberger, who just wants to hide from the public and hide from real questions. It's insane. It is insane. Now, thank you guys for tuning in, though, everybody. I am keeping an eye on stuff. Feel free. You can go. Most of my social media is at Kevin the Phares. I think besides my YouTube, I mean, for a lot of show stuff, I don't have that same handle. I can probably put it in the comments too. But I have a page for Speechless specifically now. I haven't really put much on it. But if you want to go follow that too and maybe share that profile, that would be awesome. Let me open it up here. Here we go. So we're going to You could go to anytime is a good time to get spicy. You're right. I just put in the comments there. That is the link to my. You can look at that there. That's the link to the Facebook page. Go follow that, and I'll start posting content and stuff on there. And I'm still working on kind of getting the social media stuff worked out because I've never been a big fan of social media and everything like that. But I just realized that there's a lot to be done. There's a lot that we got to do as conservatives. We've let too much ground be taken from us, and it's time that we do something about it. And the First Amendment is the power of the pen is mightier than the power of the sword. Obviously, that's metaphor because I'm using different mediums that don't necessarily always include writing. But I believe in that. We have the power of speech, the power to talk with people holds so much more weight than any other than any other thing. I get you, Raven. I see you're not using big on social media besides YouTube. Totally understand. Well, like I said, share anything with anybody. I'd really appreciate it any way that you can. That would be the biggest help. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're gonna be back kind of soon here. I'll have a short segment, and then I will keep going into some different stories in the next hour. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And we're coming back. Hey, and welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on the radio or on the app. I'm your host, Kev, and we're talking about so many different things today, breaking down some different things that happened in my week. I'm wrapping up discussing this town hall that I was a part of. The town hall, which included the college Democrats, the socialists, the college Republicans, and even like myself, Turning Point USA members, talking about a lot of different things. And so the first one that I talked about was gun control. There's a lot of kind of lies pushed a little bit with gun control. But there was another question that was brought up that I was one of the people supposed to be answering for. And that was they claimed it was a question about trans rights, which just shows me that even the moderators had a bias starting this off. Because I want anybody to show me what right listed, because when it comes to rights in the United States, for those of you that don't know, our rights are outlined in our Constitution. Those are the rights that we have. Rights are basically protections and things that we are guaranteed that the government cannot infringe upon. The thing that makes America unique when it comes to our rights is that the reason, whether or not you're a religious person, the rights that you have and the reason why the government is so restricted or should be more restricted than most other countries is because our rights are granted to us by God. They are God-given rights. They're not government-granted rights. That was the issue. That's why the French Revolution was a failure. The French lost to themselves in the French Revolution because they argued that rights were granted by the government, not by God. The government cannot infringe upon our rights because they are God-given, period. Anyway, so they tell me that this question is about trans rights. And so I prep a lot about specifically trans issues and things that we should be talking about when it comes to trans people. But then they ended up asking me a question about how there was about 30 trans members of people of the trans community that were murdered in like the last few years or something. And a good amount of them were black, or of people of color. Interesting question, but that's not what I prepared for. They asked me to talk about trans rights. This is a crime question. I don't care if you're trans, black, white, Asian, Mexican, male, female, whatever. Murder is wrong, period. That's basically what I said. Murder is wrong. And if you want to stop murder, or not necessarily stop murder, but you want to prevent murder, you want to help out with crime, you support the police. That's what you do. You got to be supportive of the police and respect them to do their job and do it well, train them well, and push good training. Anyway, so that's what they had. And here's the thing, is the reason why I think they asked me this question wasn't because they were genuinely interested in understanding the conservative perspective on this issue. 99% of people believe that murder is wrong, and they will unequivocally say that. Now we have different definitions of what murder is. That gets into the whole abortion issue, but I digress. What they didn't want me to say, the reason why they asked me this question wasn't because they wanted to hear what I had to say. It's because they didn't want to hear what I had to say, what I really had to say. And that was this, that I want to be abundantly clear. I believe we need to handle conversations regarding identity with compassion and with an open mind. The reason I am politically active is because I want to help people. And helping trans people does not include encouraging a lie that men can become women or women can become men. To encourage this destructive behavior is destructive to the concept of gender, period. Men and women are complementary, not interchangeable. This is the truth. The truth is that men and women are complementary, not interchangeable, period. Now, men pretending to be women causes the erasure of women, and to affirm those that suffer from gender dysphoria and psychosis discounts the work of feminists in generations past that have made strides against gender discrimination. I never thought I was going to be a feminist icon, everybody, but apparently that's what I'm fighting to be today. I'm a feminist icon because I believe that women are women and men are men, and we need to respect them as who they are, not putting a gender as a costume. It's disgusting. Everybody, we got to go into a break here. But if you want to see more of what I have to say, feel free to go to YouTube and click on or check out @SpeechlessKev. That's my channel. And you get some extra content during the break where I can address some more of these things more in depth. So everybody, we'll be right back with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm going to address this one real quick. Connor, you are right. I understand that. What I mean is that because you say the Ninth Amendment is clear that the rights are enumerated under the Bill of Rights and are not the only rights enumerated by nature. 100%. Absolutely. What I'm trying to say, though, is that when they frame, because before this whole town hall thing, they give us a list of like topics, not necessarily the questions verbatim, but they give us a list of topics, and they say trans rights. And so the way that I see it is that trans rights are no different than my rights. Trans people should have all the same rights that I have. And the rights that we currently are offered are the ones that are listed in our Constitution. There might be others out there because they are granted by God, and God is all knowing and we are not. And so there might be others out there, but they were not asking about questions listed in our Constitution and the rights that we know to be true. They were not asking questions about potential rights. No, they say trans rights because it doesn't even actually think through what a right actually is and where they're derived from. They don't care. The leftists that put these things on, they don't care about where that kind of stuff comes from. But you're right. The Ninth Amendment is clear that there could be other rights out there. I'm aware. And the majority, and then the 10th Amendment comes in and tells you that pretty much anything not listed in the Constitution for the most part is left up to the states. So Yeah, so that's that one. Another thing I wanted to say when it comes to, because I have a lot to say on the trans issue, it really makes me mad because I'm a person who believes in objective truth. And the objective truth is that gender is determined by XY chromosomes. Men have an X and a Y, women have two X's. That is how gender is defined. Period. Sex and gender have been used as interchangeable for years. It is not until leftist gender ideology began attacking the entire idea of gender, period. Like, another thing is that they didn't want me on the stage to come out and talk about Scott Nugent, who's a 42-year-old trans man who transitioned from woman to man, and her transition forced her to suffer from 7 surgeries, a pulmonary embolism, an induced stress heart attack, sepsis, a 17-month recurring infection, 16 rounds of antibiotics, 3 weeks of daily IV antibiotics, arm reconstructive surgery, lung, heart, and bladder damage, insomnia, hallucinations, PTSD, $1 million in medical expenses, a loss of home, car, career, and marriage. That's what happens. And there's people that are trying to push this on kids. Scott Nugent is just one of many people that have been violently hurt by by surgeries and medical procedures that don't have much science behind them. It's a medical scam. Here's what it is that they're saying, heck, you want to know how much money we can make for these cosmetic surgeries? That's why gender dysphoria isn't classified as a mental illness anymore. It's because the medical community and those that are evil in the medical community realize that they can make so much money off of pushing this dangerous ideology on people. Like I just said, Scott Nugent. Look him up. Scott Nugent, 42-year-old trans man, had to go through all these different things and has a lifetime of health complications due to this issue. And you're right. As the kid does say in Kindergarten Cop, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. What is a woman? Phenomenal documentary. Everybody go watch What is a Woman with Matt Walsh. It's beautiful. Okay. In this next hour, I got a bunch of different stories to cut through here. Let's go. Okay. I'll be right back in 20 seconds, everybody. Okay, I am back. We're going to enter the second hour. I got a lot of stories to cover in the second hour. So push this down. Got to take a seat here. There we go. That's funny, Raven. Okay, about to be coming back here. Hey, Bloomington Normal. Welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I am your host, Kev. And man, I've already covered my first hour, everybody. If you are just tuning in, you should know that I host this show every Sunday from 3 to 5 p.m. And I'm here to take your calls, questions, everything. But I do usually have a little bit of an outline. But if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to text or call in at 309-451-9299. A great texter texted into this number earlier, and they said to me, quote, "Gender is not a costume. It's a city. It should be a Cities 92.9 bumper sticker." And they said they'll take two. So I guess that's something we're going to work on, is making bumper stickers that say gender is not a costume, because it isn't. It isn't. In the last hour, I covered how at this town hall, they asked me a question that was supposed to be about trans rights, but ended up being about crime, crimes committed against trans people, which all crime, anytime any act of violence is committed towards anybody, is a bad thing. I don't endorse murder in any way. That's why I'm pro-life. They wouldn't want to hear that. And that's the thing, is they asked me this question because they didn't actually want to hear what I had to say. They didn't. But we got a lot more to cover here on Speechless today. And I'm going to get a little bit more into the into some different political stories. I've covered a lot in the last hour about what's been going on kind of in my personal life as it comes to politics. But here is something that I want to cover. I have a little bit of an uplifting story here to cover. This is you guys might know about March Madness, right? March Madness, the big basketball tournament that's going on. I was really mad because Gonzaga lost yesterday, and I had Gonzaga winning it all. My bracket is totally messed up. We actually have it on in the studio here. If you want to see me in the studio, feel free to go to YouTube and look up at Speechless Kev. I'm live right now, and I'm talking with some great people during our breaks in the comments. But now I have March Madness on right here. But the other day, Kansas State lost to Florida Atlantic University. And the Kansas State University coach, this is an uplifting story, everybody. The Kansas State University coach actually had great words of wisdom that was posted on March Madness's Instagram. And he says, this is more of a lesson for them becoming men than it is about basketball. And so here is his message that he said after they lost their game, Kansas State against FAU.
The third time I've lost in the Elite Eight, and you can sit around and mope and cry about it, or you can really just think about the love and the joy that you've had through the season. And, like winners keep their heads up. They don't drop their heads. And so our guys were not going to walk off the floor with their heads down. And then we're going to approach like tough things are going to happen in our life, and we don't get to wallow in it. Okay, we got to keep moving forward. And this is more of a lesson for them of becoming men than it is about basketball.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Look, so again, this is the coach of the Kansas State basketball team. And they were the third seed. So in their region, they were a third seed, and they got beat by the 9th seed, Florida Atlantic University, over the weekend. And he has amazing message. This is an amazing message. This is about, I'm not a big sports guy. Usually I've spent so much time focusing on politics that usually March Madness is one of the only times I ever focus on any kind of basketball. But even here, look at what he has to say. He says, tough things are going to happen in our life, and we got to keep moving forward. Man, that's a refreshing thing to hear in today's society. Because you got other people that say, tough things happen to you and it's never your fault. It's the government's fault. It's systemic racism. It's everything. And you need to be kept into a victim mentality. And here's this man who is African-American, by the way. It's not super important, but he's a coach, a basketball coach. He's African-American. And he's saying that tough things are going to happen in our life. We got to keep moving forward. And their loss in this game is more of a lesson about becoming men than it is about basketball. And so what is that lesson exactly? Well, there's a lot of lessons from that loss. How to lose with grace is one. He says they're not going to walk off with their heads hanging low. You can lose with grace. And a loss isn't necessarily just a game, a loss of a game, a loss in basketball. It's not always like that. We take losses all the time. Man, you ask out that girl and she says no. That's a loss. There's different ways to look at that. You could hang your head low and you could be really hurt by that. and let it affect every interaction you have with anybody you might like in the future, or you could keep your head high and know I have qualities that someone will like, because tough things are going to happen in our life and we got to keep moving forward. You might have lost your job. That's a loss. Legitimately, you lost your job. That's losing something. But there's a way to handle that loss and realize, hey, maybe this loss of a job actually has opened up another opportunity somewhere else. Maybe there's another job's going to come and I'm going to make 5 times as much, or I'm going to be doing something that I'm a lot happier doing. That place wasn't the right place for me. That's the lesson that these guys are learning. That's what this coach is saying. Tough things are going to happen in our life, and we got to keep moving forward. He's teaching these kids how to persevere. You could face an ultimate loss, like I have in my life a lot. Back in 2022, now last year's 2022, 2021, in December of 2021, I lost my uncle Ron. My best friend, my biggest supporter. When I got this radio show, I was only on air for a few months before he passed away. And man, he listened to every episode. He wanted to talk to me about all of it. My Uncle Ron was my hero, and I lost him back in 2021. And I got to tell you, it's not easy losing somebody. I know a lot of you out there can probably resonate with that. That's not easy losing somebody. But I can tell you, so I actually gave a eulogy for my uncle at his services. And I said, because this is true, this is exactly what happened, is he said to me before he passed away, he goes, Kevin, when I die, you got to make sure I don't vote Democrat. He told me that. He said, Kevin, when I die, you got to make sure I don't vote Democrat, because we all know Democrats bring back people from the dead to vote. But that's what he said to me. And I said that at his funeral. And that's what this coach is teaching his kids in a game of basketball. That you might lose. You might lose someone that you love. You might lose a job, lose a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. There's a lot of loss. There's a lot of things, tough things that are going to happen in our life. And we got to keep moving forward. Perseverance is important. Absolutely. And I know I just got super real with you guys there. And I just got super emotional, but we do have more stories to cover. And when it comes to perseverance and keep moving forward, that's exactly what we're going to do. And so we're going to talk about some other people that are going through a tough time, apparently. I'm not sure how much sympathy I feel for them, but this is in Time Magazine. It was posted a few weeks ago. Let me see the exact date, March 17th. So a little over a week ago. And the headline reads, Taliban militants fed up with office culture, ready to quiet quit, is what the headline reads. And this is again, Time Magazine. It reads like it's part of The Onion or something like that. Or it's like the Babylon Bee. Again, Taliban militants fed up with office culture. Here's what it says. Almost 2 years after the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan, the jihadists who transitioned from the battlefields to paper-pushing government jobs in the city are ready to quiet quit. The Afghanistan Analysts Network, a nonprofit policy research organization working to increase the understanding of life in Afghanistan, released a report last month examining how the jihadists who took over Kabul, many of whom arrived in the capital for the first time, were finding city life and their new roles. Researcher Sabawun Samim interviewed 5 jihadists who had spent several years of their lives fighting for the Taliban. They ranged in age from 24 to 32 and had spent between 6 and 11 years in the Taliban at different ranks: a Taliban commander, a sniper, a deputy commander, and 2 fighters. Samim wrote in his report, broadly speaking, all of our interviewees preferred their time as fighters in what they considered a jihad. They preferred to be those fighters. Now the men find themselves shackled with the bureaucracy of running a country as they work civilian jobs and security positions, spend too much time in traffic and on Twitter, and yearn for the tranquility of village life. The shift to working within government structures has forced them to adhere to official rules and laws they never faced before. They find, quote, clocking in for office work tedious and almost unbearable, although some said they were now getting used to the routine, the report states. We couldn't destroy the Taliban, but office work destroyed the Taliban, said one TikToker. Office work destroyed the Taliban. Here are the various reasons interviewees are fed up with the 9 to 5. So here's some of them. So the former fighters found themselves missing the freedom of the front lines as they adjusted to the mundane nature of office work. Hazafia, a 24-year-old former sniper, said, "The Taliban used to be free of restrictions, but now we sit in one place behind a desk and a computer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Life's become so wearisome. You do the same thing. You try doing the same things every day." I think this is so funny. Okay, so it goes on more, just complaining. Taliban people from the Taliban complaining about having to run a country, the country they've fought to have. They fought against America to have. Crazy. Here's what it is, everybody. And it's a hilarious story, but this is a classic example of a dog that chases a car and finally catches one. The dog, the Taliban, chased the car of actually having control of Afghanistan, and they caught it. Biden let them catch it. And now they don't know what to do with it. They're bored. They're bored. They believed their life purpose was to be fighting for the country. They never actually knew what they'd do if they actually got it. And that's exactly what happened. But I still think it's hilarious. Again, title of that article, Taliban militants fed up with office culture. Reads like something out of the Babylon Bee. And speaking of the Babylon Bee, I don't know if you guys follow him, but El Donzo on Facebook. He's part of the El Donzo and D show, which airs on Cities 92.9 on Saturdays from 9 to 11 a.m. It's like our late night show in the morning. He posted on his Facebook, El Donzo, the other day, that The Onion sucks. You guys know what The Onion is? Yeah, so Donzo said, "The Onion sucks. It just plain sucks. It's not funny, and it's like they aren't even trying." And he's kind of right. If you guys don't know what The Onion is like the Babylon Bee, but it's more like liberal. But what we should all know is that there is a great alternative out there, and that is the Babylon Bee. They're doing great work. In fact, according to Fox News this last week, nearly 100 Babylon Bee joke stories have come true. Nearly 100 stories. This is a satire publication. But nearly 100 Babylon Bee punchlines turned out into fulfilled prophecy. This is according to CEO Seth Dillon, CEO of the Babylon Bee. And he points to some different headlines and stuff as he goes, he talks about how the Bee published an article that was entitled, "To Improve Public Perception, Kamala Harris is Taking Likability Lessons from Hillary Clinton" in July 2021. And a month later, Axios reports that a former Clinton advisor hosted a dinner with prominent Democratic women, including Clinton's former spokeswoman, to discuss how to defend Vice President Kamala Harris from bad press. Basically the same thing. She almost was basically taking likability lessons from Hillary Clinton. And Dylan talks about how when they came up with this headline, they were asking themselves, who would actually take likability lessons from Hillary Clinton? She was literally one of the most unlikable candidates in American history. That is why she lost to Donald Trump, who is also, some claim, as an unlikable candidate, a divisive candidate. I know some people that listen to me like him. I like Trump. I liked him as a president. But you got to admit, he was a divisive president. He was a divisive candidate. But still, they were asking themselves, who would take likability lessons from Hillary Clinton? Nobody liked her. Even Democrats didn't like her. Now, it's insane. There is so many more articles, and I want to cover more about the Bee because they talk about how, here's what Seth Dillon says in this Fox News article. "The problem isn't that our satire is too close to reality," Seth said to Fox News. "It's that reality is too close to satire. So our jokes just keep coming true. And the Bee maintains a running list of its satirical headlines that become real, or at least partially real, and stories after when they're stories after publication. The fulfilled prophecies include a wide range of topics and include jokes about Democrats and Republicans alike." And so I talked about that Kamala Harris one. Then you got one in 2021. President Trump at the time said during an interview, he said that, quote, nobody has done more for Christianity or for evangelicals or for religion itself than I have. That's what Trump said. Now, Seth Dillon and the Bee had a 2019 article 2 years earlier that said, Trump says, "I have done more for Christianity than Jesus." 2 years later, Trump actually said that. Basically, he said he's done more for Christianity than anyone else in history. In fact, he's done more for religion than anyone else in history. That's what he says. So he does say it's insane. The Babylon Bee is amazing. I'm going to cover a little bit more about their articles, and we're going to keep going with all the satire and these jokes in the next few segments. Everybody stay tuned for more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Oh, man, it has been a long day. It has. But thank you guys, anybody who's still out there with me. Raven, I'm sure you're still watching. I really appreciate that. If you're tuning in afterwards, after the show is already aired or anything, or you're still tuning in just now, I appreciate it. If there's any way that anybody can support me in making sure that I can bring more quality content and upgrade some of our equipment and everything. So feel free to hit up my Cash App or my Venmo. I really appreciate that. And then always just make sure that you're liking, subscribing, hitting that notification bell because that is what will make it so that I can eventually monetize the whole YouTube account and start making money that way. So I can keep funding some awesome content and having fun talking to everybody here. You can also follow me on Instagram at Kevin the Phares. I believe that's also my Twitter. Hit up those. And if you have any questions, feel free to text or call in at 309-451-9299. That's one great way to get to me as soon as I'm doing live stuff. Okay, got to stand back up here. Got some more fun stories to cover. Let me look. I don't even know if Connor's still here, but I'm going to look into that Illinois House thing that he was talking about. Yeah, I'm gonna thrive. Those are my friends Miller Holler singing that song right there. Miller Holler, great band, small band out of Nashville, working their way up. They come to Bloomington Normal every once in a while. I talk about them on my show. I've had their lead singer Pat on here, and I think I think he's good. I think they're great. They're patriotic, very great. That's their song "Thrive," and I love that line. Got enough hooks and bullets to last through 2085. I'm going to do more than just survive. I'm going to thrive. And it's about kind of what we're talking about here. He talks in the song about how like it could be like Kim Jong-un. He kind of references Kim Jong-un. He doesn't know how the world's going to end. It could be a little itty bitty rocket man. He says that he doesn't know how it's going to end, but it doesn't matter because as long as you stick to yourself and you kind of stick to a lot of the principles that we hold in our country. The idea that we can live for ourselves. We don't need the government. We don't need anybody else protecting us. Got enough hooks and bullets to last to 2085. I'm doing more than just surviving. I'm thriving. That's their message that they're sending out. And it's really kind of what we're talking about on the show today. In the first hour, I talked about how our rights are at risk. The First Amendment is being challenged in our own area of Bloomington Normal. Our Second Amendment, Democrats are coming after it constantly. But in the second hour, I'm talking about some fun, different, more usually lighthearted stories a little bit. And one of which I covered was how there's nearly 100 Babylon Bee joke stories that have come true. Reported by Fox News, they talked to Seth Dillon, who is the CEO of the Babylon Bee. And so the Babylon Bee is a satirical page that it's kind of like the Onion, but like actually funny, you know? And so here's another example of one of their Babylon Bee articles that actually came true. In September 2022, the Bee joked about the economy with the headline, 9 reasons not to worry about the tanking economy. Just 2 days later, the Washington Post, we know them, they've written a hit piece about us here at Cities 92.9. The Washington Post published a headline, 7 ways a recession could be good for you financially. Dillon added that sometimes it's hard for his writers to come up with satire because the real news headlines are already read like jokes. There are all the time, he said, stories come across the screen that are just incredibly outrageous. You know, you wouldn't believe that they're true. And we have to do a double take and see, is this parody or is this a real story? We're living in a crazy, insane time. So there are plenty of times where we pull up a headline and they're just baffled by it. There was another one on February 3rd, 2023. This is a story I covered here on my show. The Bee posted a headline. They said, Biden says he'll shoot down Chinese spy balloons as soon as he's done letting it spy. 1 day later, single day later, Biden announced that the balloon was shot down over the Atlantic Ocean after it finished crossing the United States, arguing that he waited so debris wouldn't fall over civilians. Same thing. Same thing. It's funny. It is absolutely hilarious, but it's also kind of scary to think about it, that we have so many different times in which they come up with satirical things that are meant to make fun of people. They make fun of the right, they make fun of the left, whatever. And it comes true. So Dillon, even Seth Dillon, said that Bee fans often share non-satirical, outrageous headlines on Twitter with the hashtag #NotTheBee, and it sparked the idea for them to launch a new website in 2020 that covers real news that reads like satire called Not the Bee, very similar to that article that I just read about how the Taliban is actually getting tired of having to run a country. So you guys can go check out the Babylon Bee on the internet. Go check out Not the Bee, which is just actually insane stories that should be satire, but somehow aren't. You can go check out all that stuff online. Sometimes we even post some Babylon Bee articles and stuff to our Facebook, Cities 929 on Facebook. If you guys are just tuning in, you're listening to Speechless on Cities 92.9. We are coming to a break. Feel free to check out my YouTube at Speechless Kev, trying to make sure that we offer every way to interact with us in studio. Not just myself, but we got YouTubes for Kat, DPB, everybody on the speech on Cities 92.9. So feel free to go check that out at Speechless Kev. You can look at it now. You can look at it later. Make sure you can watch our shows easily. You can also look me up on Spotify at Speechless with Kevin Phares. Easy way to find me there. You could even go to our website, cities929.com, listen to all my previous shows uploaded in podcast format. Everybody, we got so much more to talk about here in the last half hour of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in to Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. All right. So another joke we're going to talk about after this, I'm going to take that out of program, is there's this video, and I'm going to show it on YouTube for everybody there because it doesn't really have too much verbiage or like not much words or anything. But I'm going to show it on YouTube. Here we go. Sorry, I was checking out a text. Let me find this. Saudi Arabia made fun of Joe Biden. So here was that video. I'm pulling it up so I can show it to everybody here. Share. Okay, so watch this video here. So that's pretty much the video right there. I still can't. I'm still dying over it. Oh, it stopped that share. Yeah, I'm still dying over that. I can't. But yeah, so I'm going to talk about that in the next segment here. Talk a little bit about Saudi Arabia is making a fool out of Joe Biden, and it speaks to the idea that that we aren't being taken seriously as a country with Joe Biden in office. Definitely. I definitely do like Meme the Left. I have seen that. It's kind of like, was it Libs of TikTok is another good one too. That hits on a lot of, that shows who the left truly is in kind of a funny satirical way. Absolutely. Okay. Here's another thing I want to shout out a second too before we come back is and it could be for you, Raven, could be for anybody that's showing or that's watching at any other time. If you got story tips, questions, ideas for shows, anything, email me at that email right there, speechlesskp@gmail.com. Speechlesskp@gmail.com. I check those. That's everything that has to do with everything with the show. And I can check that out and try to hopefully meet anything that you guys want to help out with or that you guys want me to cover on the show that you want to hear my opinion on. I'd be more than happy to cover that for you. So definitely hit that up. You could also, like I always talk about too, you could shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'm checking that. I'm not like super duper big yet. So that makes it so that I can check some stuff out there. I can always respond to stuff there. And if we're live, you can text or call in at 309-451-9299. If you want to, you could call in and then you could be live on the show with me with that. So definitely check out any of those. Again, there's the email if you're interested in shooting me an email about anything longer form or want to send me a link to a story or anything like that. And we are back with Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on your Sunday evening from 3 to 5 p.m. I'm your host, Kevin. I'm live in studio today. And if you're interested in seeing me live in studio and not just hearing me, I appreciate you guys coming in and listening on the radio or on the app. But you can also go check me out on Spotify. I'm sorry, not just Spotify. You can look me up on Spotify, though. Speechless with Kevin Phares. You can look up that there. You can also go find me on YouTube. I am live streaming on YouTube. At Speechless Kev, and you can interact with me there and see me live in studio. You get some extra content too. I'm going to be posting content that's outside of just the radio content throughout the week. And then I'll also be during my breaks and everything. When you guys are hearing advertisements on the radio, I appreciate you guys listening there. Definitely go check out those that we advertise with. John's in Lexington. There's so many of our other advertisers too that we'd love for you guys to go work with them. But if you want to get some extra content outside of that, go to YouTube at Speechless Kev, and you can interact with me there. But we got some more stories to cover here. So I just was talking during the break on my YouTube because I can't really, because you can't show video or anything on the radio. There is this story, doesn't have really much audio, but reporting from the New York Post, there's Saudi Arabia TV airs an SNL style skit mocking Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Joe Biden was portrayed as a hapless buffoon on SNL, which is Saudi Night Live. Saudi Arabia's state-run television network aired a skit where the actor playing the president stumbles as he climbs the staircase leading to Air Force One, while the comic portraying Vice President Kamala Harris looks on in horror. The skit pokes fun at the real-life gaffes of 80-year-old Biden, who has had a penchant for frequently losing his balance. In another snippet from the show, Studio 22, that went viral on Friday, the actor portraying Biden is seen wrapping up a speech and waving from a podium at the White House to two flags behind him. He then salutes and steps down from the podium, taking a couple steps forward and extending his hand to another person, only to realize that there's nobody there. It was hilarious. I watched this video. You can go look at it. Benny Johnson posted it to his Twitter. You can go to my YouTube at SpeechlessKev, and I'll make a short of this video. But it's hilarious. This is actually better than Saturday Night Live now. And the thing that's sad to me is that this is Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia, I would not necessarily consider a super big ally of ours. They're not necessarily an adversary all the time either. But it just shows, here's the broader concept that we're working with here, is that Biden is weak on the world stage. He is. Biden is weak on the world stage. He is an old, forgetful man who falls asleep at the podium and needs to be woken up by Vice President Kamala Harris. That's the truth. That's how they see us. That is how these people see us. They are going so far as to, do you guys remember? I'm old enough to remember when the president of the United States was considered, it was synonymous with being the most powerful man in the world. Could be woman eventually. I'm not against it necessarily. We could talk about that later. But at one point, the president of the United States was seen as being the most powerful man in the world. And now we have Saudi Arabia producing content that makes fun of the president. It's funny. I don't like Joe Biden. Didn't vote for him. Not my guy. And it's hilarious that the videos that they made are really funny, but it's a really sad reflection of our society when who was once considered the most powerful man of the world has a foreign government run media network making fun of him. What does that say? What does that say about the state of our country? Feel free to text or call in at 309-451-9299. I want to know what you guys have to say about things like this. 309-451-9299. You can text or call. I am monitoring those lines to make sure that everybody gets a chance, because this is the thing. I should call this show Speechless. I'm speechless. I'm on a college campus and I have a conservative opinion. It's not easy to necessarily get that opinion out into the public sphere of a college campus. Thank God for Cities 92.9 for allowing me to do so. But when you're in a classroom, it's not so easy. The thing is that that's how the rest of our society is nowadays. We have people that at their jobs are being forced into believing and forced into pushing a woke agenda. We have teachers out there that are being forced to talk about critical race theory and sex with young children. They don't want to be doing that. But the leftist wokeist agenda is forcing them to be speechless. And so this is a platform, not just for me, but for everybody. So again, text or call in at 309-451-9299. But I digress. Going back to this, as a candidate, so when we're talking about Saudi Arabia and this sketch that they came up with, as a candidate, Biden had vowed to shun de facto Saudi ruler Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, whom Western intelligence officials blame for the gruesome killing of a 2018 journalist commentator, Jamal Khashoggi. The administration was particularly irked with the Saudis for not boosting oil production and for refusing to ostracize fellow OPEC member Russia over its invasion in Ukraine. So again, Saudi really isn't a friend, not necessarily fully a foe, but Biden doesn't like him. They obviously don't like Biden, and they push the true narrative that Biden is a weak leader. We need a strong leader. We need a strong leader in office. And some people, and I don't know if I'm necessarily one of these people, but some people think that might be former President Donald J. Trump. Now, there's been a lot in the news about former President Donald J. Trump in the media recently. And one of those things is about his potential indictment. And I covered it. I wasn't able to get super duper into it last week. But he has this potential indictment that is being pushed. And quickly, the Manhattan DA was talked to, or was pushed to potentially have to go and talk in front of Congress about everything that's going on here. But here's, according to the Daily Wire, Trump accuses the Manhattan DA of prosecutorial misconduct at his Texas rally. So yesterday, Trump was at Texas, was in Waco, Texas. Interestingly, didn't note anything about the 30-year anniversary of the Waco shootings, or not Waco massacre, really, the mishap from the government. Mishap is an understatement. But he didn't mention anything about that. But former President Trump accused Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg of prosecutorial misconduct on Saturday in his first 2024 campaign rally in Waco, Texas. Facing the prospect of an indictment in the coming days, Trump argued to his supporters gathered at the airport that Democrats are again using underhanded tactics to disrupt his political career by targeting him with yet another quote unquote hoax. So this is what Trump says. Bragg is investigating me for something that is not a crime, not a misdemeanor, not an affair, Trump told the crowd, alluding to the inquiry over alleged hush money payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. He said, "This is really prosecutorial misconduct. The innocence of people makes no difference to these radical left maniacs." That's what he says. Trump also insisted that Bragg has nothing on him and claimed the prosecutor stacked his office with DC operatives to make sure that Trump got, quote unquote, taken care of. Now, I'm sorry. Like I said, I supported Trump in 2020. I supported Trump in 2016. But I totally see this as being, like, even if Trump was 100% guilty of this hush money claim and everything, it is still a misuse of resources. There are murderers on the loose in Manhattan. There are better things for this DA to be focusing on than Trump, who is, I basically see as harmless. Not to say that people shouldn't be held accountable for potential crimes and people should be investigated and held accountable. It just seems like this seems political, very, very political. But I'm also, when Trump says that they have nothing on him, but also a week ago said that he was going to be arrested for this, it makes no sense to me. I'm really confused by Trump's rhetoric on this whole situation of his possible indictment. And a question I've gotten from some people is that whether or not Trump can even run for president if he were arrested and brought to prison. Like, wouldn't it seem like he has bigger things on his plate? Yes, it would seem like he had bigger things on his plate. But in our Constitution, I believe in Article 2 of our Constitution, when it outlines the qualifications to be president, it lists age, that you're a natural born citizen, and that you have to have lived in America for a certain amount of years. I'm sorry. You're a natural born citizen. Of course you've lived in America. I'm thinking Congress. Sorry. No, that it lists age and that you're a natural born citizen. Those are basically the main things that you need to do to be a candidate for president. Right now, actually, in this last week, Joe Exotic, you might remember him from Tiger King and everything. He announced that he is running for president. I think he claims he's a libertarian, but the Libertarian Party actually came out and said that it's a joke. Don't take him seriously. He does not represent libertarianism. But that's the point. Joe Exotic is currently in prison. Trump could go to prison. Maybe. I doubt it. That's the other thing, too. I doubt Trump will be going to prison anytime soon, ever. I don't think he'll ever go to prison. It's just because the thing is it's what Elon said. Elon Musk said this on Twitter, is that if Trump were to get indicted and he were to go to prison, that would secure his win for 2024. Period. Because it looks super political. It looks super political. And think about the optics of Trump getting arrested, put in cuffs. Oh my God, the marketing writes itself, everybody. You want to put the nail in the coffin for a Democrat loss in 2024, arrest Trump. And that's coming from somebody who, I'm not super big on Trump 2024. Now, if Trump wins in 2024 for the primary, if he wins, then, I'm 100% for Trump. I would campaign for him. I would help him. Right now, I'm for a candidate that hasn't even announced yet. I'm a DeSantis fan. And that's another thing that I want to talk about is how Trump actually, in his Waco speech last night, not only did he address what happened to, or what's going on with his case, he actually went after DeSantis. And I have a video of it. I'm sorry I couldn't find this. This video is from a pretty biased tweeter, but I do have the video here of Trump trying to go after DeSantis and how the crowd reacted to that. And so I would like to share this video. Here is that now.
But I saw him, so he came and he really wanted. I said, "You can't win, can you? Hattie can win. Sir, if you endorse me, I'll win. Please. Please, sir, endorse me." And I said, "All right, let's give it a shot," because honestly, the Secretary of Agriculture. But I saw.
So as you can hear, the Twitter person overlaid some cricket noises on it. But it was, that's just how it kind of went. Trump was brought up. Trump brought up the whole idea of DeSantis 2024, and he brought up the idea that he endorsed him, but he was begged. He says that DeSantis, DeSanctimonious, begged for my endorsement. Again, I just think this is really bad on Trump's part. The problem is that Trump, in his speech, tried to go after DeSantis, calling him, saying that DeSantis was a descendant of Paul Ryan, or a disciple. They called him a disciple of Paul Ryan, who is like a never Trump Bush era Republican. But that just doesn't make sense. All of DeSantis's policy, everything that he's pushing, the way that he talks is of a conservative background. Conservatives support him. Some conservatives also support Donald Trump. You look, I'm not against Trump 2024. I want to be clear with that. I'm not against Trump 2024. I am more for DeSantis, though. I want a younger-ish face for the conservative movement. I think Trump did amazing things. Nobody's ever done the kinds of things that Trump had done. But DeSantis, I think, would do better, especially with everything that's surrounding Trump right now when it comes to January 6th, which obviously we know was partially a setup. But Trump just has too much going. This is possible indictment, everything. DeSantis would be an amazing pick. That's who I personally am looking at right now for 2024. And Trump, when it comes to your marketing, man, I know you're not listening, but if this gets to you, when it comes to your marketing, it's not a good idea to go after DeSantis. Real conservatives, not Paul Ryan rhinos, not Paul Ryan rhinos. Real conservatives support DeSantis, and real conservatives support Trump. DeSantis is not a rhino. Stop trying to claim he is. Everybody, we got more Speechless coming up, but we do have to take a break. Thank you so much for tuning in, and feel free to check out my YouTube at Speechless Kev. Whenever you can, at Speechless Kev, subscribe, like it, ring that notification bell, everything like that. Check it out, and we will be right back with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Raven, I see your comment there. I want to address it, and I could probably address it live in the next area. But you don't trust DeSantis. I've heard that from some people, and I just want to ask why. Serious question. Why don't you trust DeSantis? What's the reason? And if it's just a feeling, I get it. But I really want to be able to address that kind of sentiment because I've talked to other people about it, and I just don't totally understand why some people don't trust him. Just curious. Let me know. Thank you. If you're just tuning in, we are live. I got a few more minutes left to wrap up the show. I'm live going to be on live on the radio again soon here. A few more minutes. But thank you for tuning in. And we're going to address some more stuff with Trump. And I'm probably going to cover, I don't know if I really have any room for that, but I do want to talk. Maybe I'll post a video tomorrow about Jonathan Majors and that whole thing. Okay, well, he's kind of sidestepping on the constitutional carry in Florida. Sure. He went permitless carry, and he won't legalize open carry. I see that down here from Raven. I'm going to try to address, I don't think I can address all that in this next segment, but 2024 is going to be a continuous topic on this show. So I'm going to make sure I save that. I can star that comment for myself. And so I can address that sometime soon, I'm sure. When I can do a little bit more research on, I really don't know about the Florida policy as much when it comes to constitutional carry. I know what I liked him about is how he handled COVID. I thought the way he handled COVID was phenomenal. So definitely I'll work on that. Anybody else that's just tuning in, thank you guys. The show is coming to an end sometime soon here in the next 7 minutes or so. But definitely follow me on Instagram right there. Make sure you're like and subscribe and ring that notification bell so you can hit me up every other time that it's on. If you want to support the show in anywhere, there's the Cash App, there's the Venmo. I'm going to monetize the channel when I get enough subscribers and everything. Make sure you're sharing the channel with your friends. But if you want to help make it so that I can bring quality content, hit up the Cash App, hit up the Venmo. So that I can, what I want to do is make it so that my streams are better. I can have more time to stream. I can stream more. So right now I have a limited service that makes it so I can only stream 20 hours in a month. So because I can only stream 20 hours in a month, I can only do it on like mainly my Sundays that I have my live show, but I'd stream more and get more content out there if I had more time, and I can pay for a larger subscription if I get a little bit more investment. So I'd really appreciate it. But keep paying attention, guys. We have so much truth we're trying to look at in this show. You can tune in live Sundays 3 to 5. That's when I'm here mainly right now. I'm going to be posting more content though, so make sure you're interacting with the channel so we can get it out there to people. And then I can keep increasing production and make it more than just a hobby, hopefully someday. So there's the Instagram for anybody you can check out. I also have a Facebook now for it where I'm going to start posting some content and stuff. That's right there. So you can go and check out Speechless Kev on Facebook, and that's me. Like the page and everything, and we'll interact. I'll interact with you. You can interact with me, everybody. So we're going to come back here in probably about 30 seconds, and we're going to break down a few more things. Final story here, or two in my last 5 or so minutes. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. All right, we're coming back. Hey, Bloomings to Normal, and welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9. You might be listening on the phone, on your app, on your radio, anywhere, but you could also be, if you want to, be tuning in on YouTube at Speechless Kev, where you can interact with me. I can interact with you in a different way. You can see me right here in studio at Speechless Kev is that, and you can tune in there. You can talk to me through there. You can even get some extra content during the breaks and everything. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to my show. We're ending out in the last segment here. But in the past few segments, I was talking about everything. I mean, we're talking about how the world seems so crazy right now, but we need to look at some of the positives. I talked about how there was the coach of Kansas State who had a wonderful message after losing his game in an upset in March Madness, in which he told the reporters that their loss is teaching a lesson to the team. He says their loss is more of a lesson about becoming men than it is about basketball. That tough things are going to happen in our life and we got to keep moving forward. And that's what this show is all about. When I was a freshman at Illinois State University and I was starting our Turning Point USA club there, I was assaulted by a professor. And I got to an apology from him. Unfortunately, he didn't get fired. He was tenured, but I was physically assaulted by this professor. And in his apology to me, I had the opportunity to speak after he was groveling, sorry, and everything in front of his advisor. And I told him, I go, all this has done for me is make me more motivated, because if there's people out there like you, it's people like you that need to hear the conservative opinion, that need to hear that there are young people that disagree with you. There are people, period, that disagree with you. That's the importance of this show. And so if you disagree with me, as always, feel free to text or call in at 309-451-9299. I want to hear what you have to say. You could also email me at speechlesskp@gmail.com. But in my last few minutes here, I want to talk about one more story, one that I'm really fascinated by. And I think actually, I think it's from the Daily Wire here, and I'm sure you guys might have heard of it. But there's been NHL teams, National Hockey League teams, that have ditched the Pride-themed jerseys in fears, and there's now a fear for a Russian player's safety. So this is kind of more local to us. The Chicago Blackhawks will not take the ice for Sunday's warm-ups wearing Pride-themed jerseys. The decision, according to a report published Wednesday by the outlet The Athletic, was made by team officials in the front office rather than by the players themselves. But the stated goal was to ensure the safety of several players who have deep ties to Russia. At issue in a new law signed in December by Russian President Vladimir Putin, which bans all LGBTQ propaganda and prohibits Russian citizens from promoting or sharing information about homosexuality, whether that be on television, in books, advertising, etc. It explains a previous law that banned expressing or demonstrating LGBTQ behavior in front of children. The official punishment for those found in violation of the law is a fine, but officials within the Blackhawks organization opted to nix the Pride-themed wear just to stay on the safe side. 3 of the team's players have some ties to the embattled nation, and they list the players here. I got to be honest, I can't even pronounce their names because it's very Russian. But the Chicago Gay Hockey Association released a statement calling the decision disappointing. And here's the thing. I don't want anybody to be at threat from Russia. I think Russia's bad. I think Ukraine's bad. I think that whole thing, we should not be involved in it. I'm with DeSantis on that one. But I think this is a good thing. We don't need this woke politics in our hockey, in our sports, in anything. Sports shouldn't be about wokeism. It should be about sport and winning. And so it sucks that we're pressured into speech prohibition from Russia. But this is speech that I don't think belongs in hockey, period. Everybody, this has been Speechless. I'm sorry I didn't get more into that story, but thank you so much for tuning in to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We'll be back next week, 3 to 5. Okay, well, everybody, that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you missed any of it, you can always go back. It'll be posted right on to the website. Thank you again for tuning everybody. I'll be back next week, and I'll probably try to post some content throughout this week. Thank you again for tuning in. This has been Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and I'll see you next week.